Got it, right. So we'll go back to our Gemara that we were looking at. Yes.
Norman, can I just ask something? Peter kindly sent me the recording, because I have to admit that last week at 11:30 Israeli time, I wasn't quite up to Kofso Soccer Club and all that.
Why?
I couldn't. My brain was going. It was 11:30 p.m. It was time we were finishing in Israel.
Oh, we got this. Just a minute. I'll just say hello to Mr. Deal, who's joined us. Great to see you. We can't hear you. Still can't hear you. You're on. I think you have to come off mute.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're probably recording. Just say hello. Good to see you. Mervyn had a quick question. Although he's on mute, he'll have to come off mute. Mervyn?
Yeah. I'm off mute now. So these three opinions we had. So if you say Kofso Soccer Club and also Shabbos Ba'ora, we were comparing Hanukkah and Shabbos candles. Is that correct?
Yes, we were. Joined us. Just a quick question on last week. Don't worry. It sounds not familiar.
Presumably, Kofso Soccer Club doesn't apply to Shabbos, does it?
No, because there's nothing you can do anyway.
Yeah. So
yes, no, it's not relevant for Shabbos. It was only Hanukkah. If it goes, are you obliged to turn it back on or not, or turn it rekindle?
But the Osel Ishtamish can apply to both.
Yes, it does. Osel Ishtamish mean, and that's exactly right. People do use the lights of Shabbos. That's all the lights they often had. Yes, so we do have that problem. That's why that's how Hanukkah gets suddenly involved there in the middle of that perek, Bamer Madlikin on Shabbos. It's about the famous Bamer Madlikin perek, which deals with what type of wicks, what type of oils can you use on Shabbos. And clearly there you do need good quality wicks, oils, because yes, you will be using those lights, and we are scared, Shem or Yate, you might come and incline, rekindle, whatever. And then then the Gemara goes on and says, does the same rule apply to Hanukkah? And it does depend on that, whether you're using the candles or not. If you're not utilizing the, as we said before, remember David, then it doesn't matter if the quality isn't really tip-top. Of course, hid a mitzvah, it doesn't matter, because you won't be using the candles and you won't come and you say also ishtamish la'ira. What did we say there? Yeah, I mean, it depends whether you hold an osel ishtamish la'ira or mutal ishtamish la'ira. We were holding osel ishtamish la'ira. You can't use those candles, so you won't be using those candles anyway. So
what's
I
the halacha
confused
for
you?
Shabbos? Yeah, what's the halacha on for Shabbos candles then? What would these people, those who say you mutal ishtamish for Hanukkah, would say mutal ishtamish for Friday night?
Yes, mutal ishtamish la'ira.
Okay.
If you, and that's why, you want good quality candles.
And what do we pass? What's the halacha for Friday?
For Shabbos, we would say you're expecting to use those candles.
Yeah. Okay.
So watch out. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's go back to our Gemara. We're on Daf. Before we turn this page Chof Amud Beis, but Chof Amud Aleph. And remember we spoke until now about whether the Bezdin were on the Chof Amud Aleph. I'll tell you exactly where in a moment. We were talking about whether the Bezdin has the power to hold back the witnesses. The witnesses come and say, we saw the moon last night, for example. Not it could be, let's say, last night, whatever night it was. They come to Bezdin. Does the Bezdin have the power to push off the witnesses and not accept their testimony? And we spoke about various reasons they might want to do that, because they might want to lengthen the month, even though they actually saw the moon, let's say on a Sunday night. they may want to push it and not have Sunday night, Monday being the first day of the Chodesh. They may want, rather than having Monday, let's say Tuesday for whatever reason. Remember, we spoke about having Yom Kippur falling on a Friday or a Sunday as an example. They may not want, well, they wouldn't want that to happen. And we spoke about various reasons why the Beis Din might want to push off the Eidim. Literally, push off. They may want to tell the Eidim, we're not accepting your testimony, or they just won't accept the testimony, so that they can say have the Chodesh starting one day later. Now, then and this was the view we had here. Have a look here, Bahotoni Rabba Bar Shmuel. Beginning of the line is Shmuel. It's about 12 lines up from Daf Chaf Omid Aleph. It should be on the attachment, if you've got an attachment. Otherwise, you've got your own Gemara. It's 14 lines up. Shmuel, so again, now, Toni Rabba Bar Shmuel. So until now, we've learned that it's possible, if necessary, the Beis Din feels it's necessary, you can push off the testimony of the witnesses who saw the moon because you want to delay the Rosh Chodesh. Says the Gemara, V'atoni, that's not true. V'atoni Rabba Bar Shmuel, beginning of the line, Yochel, I might have thought, Kashem Shema Abrim Es Hashana L'Tzoireh. Just like, what does that mean? You can have an extra month for the year, and that's Ma'abrim Es Hashana, intercalate. You can actually add that Odder Sheni. When would they add the Odder Sheni? When they realize it's far too early in the year, it's still, deep in winter, and they may, and actually, as we explained before, there'd be experts on a lot of botanical issues. There'd be experts, presumably in conjunction with the farmers, when the farmers would be telling them it's far too early in the year, we don't want, you need that extra month for the growth. And it's deep winter, and don't forget, in Pesach time, people will be Ola Regel, and if it's in the middle of the snow, they really won't want to do that. Anyway, it's got to be in the spring. So if it's defined for whatever reason as being deep in winter, they may want to add that additional month, and they can do that. So the Gemara here says, Yochel, you might think, Kashem Shema Abrim Es Hashana L'Tzoireh, just like you can be Ma'aber the year, have that extra month. L'Tzoireh, when you find it's necessary, you rabbis, Beis Din, Kach Ma'abrim Es HaChodesh L'Tzoireh. So I might have thought you could do the same with the months. Says Shmuel, no, you can't. Talmud Loima HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem Rosh Chodoshim. This month, and they're like pointing with a finger, is your Rosh Chodoshim. What does that mean? That means when you see the month, look at this, because Kozer, we've had this principle before, Kozer Ra'ei B'Kadesh. Like this, you see it, and once you've seen it, you're Makadesh the month. So according to Rabba Bar Shmuel, you are not allowed to add that extra day and push off the witnesses. If the witnesses saw the moon, you have to accept them. So this is in disagreement to what we've learned until now, where we've said, no, you are allowed, if the Beis Din feels they want to extend the month, they can do so. It's up to them. This seems to disagree. Omar Rava says, lo kasha, this is not difficult. Kan la abroi, kan la kachoi. There's a difference between la abro, making it longer, and if you like, la kacha, being makadish the month a day early. Now, the month can either be 29 or 30 days, and we'll see what happens if witnesses don't see the moon. And the Beis Din wanted to make the month a 29-day month. This is what we're saying here. Kan la abro, kan la kacha, v'hochi koma. This is what the Gemara means. and we'll just now go over what we learned before. Yochad, this is the view. In other words, there's some words missing in the statement of Rabbi Bar Shmuel, and this is what it really means, and this is what how the words should actually flow. Yochel, one might think, just like you can extend a year and you can extend a month. If it's necessary, good. I'm pleased we've changed that wording because that fits in what we've learned in the previous weeks. I might have thought the same thing. Maybe you can make the month shorter if necessary. In other words, let's say Sunday night, Monday is the 30th. It's either be the 30th day or it'll be the first of the Chodesh. Maybe if they want to, they can make that the first day of the Chodesh, even if witnesses don't come. Talmud Noima, no. You can only make a Rosh Chodesh if they saw the moon. If you saw the moon, then you can push off the Eidim. But if you didn't see the moon, you can't make that night Rosh Chodesh, even if you want to, and even if, I say, astronomically, it could be the new moon, just because the moon wasn't seen, you're not allowed to make the Chodesh a 29-day Chodesh. In other words, making day 30, day 1, unless you actually saw the moon, or not you, the Eidim saw the moon. Okay? This is the statement of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Ma'aymin eso Eidim. It's like you warn them. You almost like you put them off. Al achodesh shenire bismanoi. If the moon was seen in its right time, which means, let's go to back to our example. Imagine Sunday night, they saw the moon, so that they come to Beis Din on Monday, and Monday really they could have made the first of the new month, but you can warn them off. Next line, al hachodesh on a month shenira bismano, when it was seen la abro, you've got the power to push off and make the month longer, even though the witnesses saw the moon on Sunday night. You can delay making Monday Rosh Chodesh. In other words, Monday will be day 30 of the month, and make Tuesday the first. That you can do. But the ein ma'ayim alo eidim ala chodesh shelo nireh bismano lekacha. What you can't do is you cannot make Sunday night, Monday Rosh Chodesh if witnesses have not seen the moon. You can't do it that way round. If witnesses see the moon, you can push them off and not accept the witnesses yet. But if they haven't seen the moon, you can't make that day Rosh Chodesh, but you'd have to wait until the following day. Okay, so far so good. Have a look at Rashi here. Ma'ayim alo edim al ha-chodesh. You got the word chodesh in Rashi? 9 lines up. In other words, you warn off these edim ala chodesh on a month. Shenire bismanoi. It was seen in bismano, means in the right time. Says Rashi b'yom shloshim. The moon was seen on the night, the day of the 30th, right? Sheyacharishu, you tell them to be quiet. Bishvila abra, you warn them and say, don't give your testimony, because we really want to make this month an extra day, to make it a 30-day month. You can do that, even though they saw the moon in our example on Sunday night, which was the 30th day of the previous month. And if you'd accept those witnesses, you would now transfer and transform really the day Monday from the 30th to become the 1st. You can tell them, keep quiet, please, warn them off, giving their testimony. That you can do. But the aim in biyom shloshim, What you can't do is you cannot warn them. Look at this. B'yom shloshim, on that 30th day, alo eidim shelo ra'uhu, witnesses who did not see the moon, but you are very keen to make Monday Rosh Chodesh. You can't warn them off and say, give some type of testimony. Well, obviously not, you would think, because it would be false testimony. They didn't see the moon. If you need to make that Monday the first of the month, but nobody saw the moon, hard luck. You can't do anything. For example, Shabbos and Yom Kippur, that you can't do. So a very interesting point here. I suppose perhaps you'd say it's obvious. What you can do, you can delay the testimony of the witnesses, but you can't get witnesses to testify they saw the moon, even though you're very keen to make that Monday the first of the month. There's nothing you can do about it because nobody saw the moon. Okay, so that now fits in, and that's really what Rabbi Bar Shmuel was expressing, although the words that we had initially sounded different to what we've learned before. No, there's no difference. You are allowed, the Beis Din is allowed to delay a Rosh Chodesh if they feel they'd like to. And remember the example, the typical example is they don't want to have Yom Kippur on a Friday or a Sunday, because then there'd be 2 days without allowing funerals. On Yom Tov, remember, you could have a non-Jew doing the funeral, not on Yom Kippur or on Shabbos. And therefore, there might be a very good reason they don't want to have Yom Kippur falling on a Friday, and therefore maybe push it off a day so they all falls together on a Shabbos. Then there'd just be this 1 24-hour period where funerals were not possible. So that's where we're up to. Continue on the Gemara. Somebody said something?
Yeah, and I just wondered, what happens if you reach the 30th day and
Yes.
no one saw the moon? Was it declared the next day anyway, automatically, because it couldn't go on?
Yes.
Say it was cloudy or something.
There's that default period of the month.
Once you've reached day 30, the next day
you cannot have anything longer than day 30. There is an actual machlokes whether they need to say Makudash, or maybe they don't even need to say it, because at default, you can't have a month longer than 30 days. And the reason for that, as we know before, we've always said that 29 and a half days. So between months, the time it takes for the moon to circle, to encircle the earth, really. So therefore, it's either 29 or 30, but it can't be longer than 30. Quite right. You can't have a 30-day month, 32-day month, for example. Yes. But we haven't finished yet. Says the Gemara, Eini. This is not true, what we've just learned. Vohosh, have you got it? Begin line in Bismano. Yeah? And this is fascinating. Eini v'hosholach lei Rabbi Yehuda Nasiah. Who's Rabbi Yehuda Nasiah? He is also, he's not Rabbi Yehuda the Nossi, he's his grandson. And to differentiate between him, Rabbi Yehuda Nossi, the great Tana, of course, the author of the Mishnayos, bringing down the different views, Rabbi Yehuda Nossi, the author of the Mishnayos, his grandson was called also a prince, but of course he was no longer considered a Tana, and therefore the difference is he's called Nasiah, also a Nossi, but a Nasiah, that's his grandson. Rabbi Yehuda Nossi's grandson is called Rabbi Yehuda Nasiah. And he sent a message to Rabbi Ami, and the wording sounds like this is, everybody agreed to this statement. Hevu Yodim, you should know, Shekol Yomov Shel Rabbi Yochanan, all those years of Rabbi Yochanan, Hoya Malamdenu, he taught us the following rule. There's the days of Rabbi Yochanan, Ma'aimim al ha'edim al ha'chodesh shelo nireh bizmano lekacho. Exactly the opposite. You can warn witnesses, and of course, everybody's going to jump and say, well, it's just not true. This is sheker. But you can warn the Eidim, shelo nireh bismanai, when the moon was not seen, in our example on a Sunday night, you can warn them and advise them, lekadshay, to give testimony that they saw the moon because you're so keen to make Monday the first of the month, for example. Afal pi shelo ro'uhu, even though they didn't actually see it. Wow. Yomru, they can say, Ro'inu, we did see the moon. Wow. A few interesting points there. So they're teaching the Eidim to say we saw the moon just because they're so keen to make that day Rosh Chodesh. They are like telling the Eidim to say something which sounds untrue. Before we get to the point about actually how can they tell the witnesses to say something which is not true, we've got a question to what we learned earlier. We learned earlier, and it sounds like from this view that everybody would agree to this view we've just seen here, that you are allowed to teach the Eidim to say they saw the moon, in our example, Sunday night. If you wanted to make Monday Rosh Chodesh, you can make out as if they really saw the moon. That is in direct contradiction to what we've learned earlier when we said, no, you can't do that. You can extend the month, but you can't. In other words, tell the Eidim, keep quiet and don't tell us anything, but you can't tell them to fabricate. That's what we learned until now. So we got a contradiction. Besides a basic question about how can you get them to fabricate and say they saw the moon, leave that question for the moment. But what about the contradiction between the statement we made before and this statement, which sounds like it's every universal, everybody agrees to this. Omer Abaya, Lo Kasha, Ho B'Nissen B'Tishri, Ho B'Shah Yarche. What's that about? Have a look at Rashi. B'Nissen B'Tishri, Shehamoyados Tuluyin Mohen. Makadshim L'Tzoirech. Wow. Abaya says when it comes to Nisan and Tishri, you can even get the Bezdin to say that today is Rosh Chodesh, even if the Eidim didn't actually see the moon. That's only for Nisan and Tishri. All the Moadim depend on them. But B'Shah Yachi Lo. On other months, you can't do that. Okay? So what we're saying here, it's only for Nisan and Tishri you can do this, but not on other months. Okay. Have a look, if you don't mind, Peter, please. Can you please, let's have a look at Sefaria. So let's go to Safari. Now, this is a trickier. Can you, no, go further down, drop down. No, sorry. Go back to Gemara, which is Talmud. Click on the Talmud. And now scroll down, not to Rosh Hashanah, but scroll down further. You see what a huge amount of information you've got here. Right, keep going. It's not the Gemara I want one of the Pirushim. Keep going down. Then you've got guides, you've got Rishonim. I don't want Rishonim, I want Acharonim. Next one is going to be Acharonim. Now take this slowly, because we want, beginning with a P, Pnei Yehoshua. Which we've got. Before we do, let's have a quick, go back, sorry. Just have a quick look. A widely studied 18th century commentary by Rabbi Yaakov Yeshua Falk, largely focused on resolving questions posed by Tosfos on Rashi. It's a lot more than that, but anyway, let's please press the Pnei Yeshua. And let's go to Rosh Hashanah. And let's go to Daf 20, 28. Right, now what I want to pick up, scroll down a little bit, a bit more. I'll get to what we want here. No, next one, bit more. We're getting there. Huge commentary. No, keep going. I hope it's going to be here. Otherwise, I'll be in trouble. Tosfos, Mazino, Gemara. That's the one we want. No, not the next one. The next one, Gemara. Ma'ayim. That's the one. I think it's large enough. You can make it larger if you like, but otherwise, it's large enough, probably. You want to consume a little bit, maybe? Zoom in or zoom out. Okay. Okay, very good. Let's go back to that. And the Gemara's conclusion is, yes, you can do that only for Nisan and we said Nisan and Tishri. Nire, it would appear, says Pnei Yeshua, Tahainu, that would apply. La'acha, after, she'al pi hacheshbon, according to the calculations, the astronomical calculations, royu liros, it could have been seen. So you see what experts they were, doing all the calculations, it could have been seen. Okay? It turns out it wasn't seen. Maybe very cloudy. The kivan, the mitzvah lekadesh al pi re'iyah, seeing as the mitzvah to be makadesh after having seen the moon, lo ma'akev, doesn't actually prevent announcing the moon, announcing the chodesh, le'inyan hakavius le mitzvah ba'alma, which means a general mitzvah of fixing the calendar, actual visibility is not needed. And of course, a proof of that is nowadays, where we've got a fixed calendar and we have the fixed calendar, even though there's actually no visibility of the moon itself, can keep so. But even in those days, when they were having Eidim coming and giving their testimony, or la'es hatorech, when the time needs, shapir, it's good, and you're certainly capable of your shapir yechodim, which it's good, literally, it's good, and you're able. Lasos came, v'lo havi devar sheker. This is not a lie. In other words, they would only allow them to give some type of testimony. Keep going. Diyadia havi kiriyah. Wow. What it means is when they say, you tell the Eidim to say they saw the moon, not that they actually saw the moon, they could have seen the moon. And we play this down and we say, you could have seen the moon, therefore you're capable, you're able, as we've got the two witnesses, you're able to say, we saw the moon, seeing, meaning we know that the new moon was visible. We couldn't see it, but it could potentially have been seen tonight. You with me? So obviously the Pnei Yeshua is worried about the problem. How can they give testimony which is not true? They didn't see the moon on that Sunday night. But the Beis Din knows it could have been seen had it not been a cloudy night, for example. Or how, Eidim come along. But unfortunately, nobody did actually see the moon. Under those circumstances, you can have Eidim saying, we know the moon could have been seen today. We are therefore saying it's equivalent to we actually saw the moon, and it's a bit inverted commas here, although they actually didn't see the moon, and that's going to be good enough. It's very clear that we want the Beis Din to announce Rosh Chodesh based on witnesses. So the Beis Din can then go out and say, yes, witnesses came, or there were witnesses here, but in fact, they're not actually saying we really saw the moon, but we could have seen the moon. And that's good enough, because it was possible. Continue the Pnei Yeshua. The Yosen Nira, it seems to me it's more likely correct. Yosenir, it appears, Miloshan Ma'aymin, Dahainu. What does this word Ma'aymin mean? Hainu She'ein Medaktikim. We are not over particular. Ba'eduson, with their testimony. That's what it means. Ah, this is nice. Kol kach. Da'afal gav, the end of the line, even though de'efsha shelo ro elo kuvisa de'iva. Maybe they saw a shaped moon looking like the moon. Bidmus lavon, some clouds, some cloud formation, a crescent, a slim crescent. As he says here, it's made some clouds. Ba'alma bidmus halvono. Right? So, if the Bezdin, the Dayonim, would push these Eidim, maybe it would turn out that what they saw actually was just a cloud formation. So these witnesses come and say, we saw the moon. Maybe put people on mute.
Sir?
Oh, sorry, let's go. A question? No, okay. So in other words, it goes like this. The Bezdin knows that it was possible to see the moon. Two witnesses come along and say, we saw the moon. Now, if those Dayonim would question them, they would then realize that maybe, in fact, that it's not certain they actually saw the moon. They may have seen a crescent cloud, with the sun shining on it, etc. Maybe they were mistaken. Now, any normal type of testimony, of course, the Dayonim would ensure that, of course, what they're saying is absolutely spot on. In this case, when the Bezdin actually would like, it's in their interest, they would like Sunday night and Monday to be Rosh Chodesh. So if two witnesses come along and say they saw the moon, they'll stop, they'll say, great, they won't quiz them any further. Even if indeed they didn't see the moon, they don't care, because they really want that day to be Rosh Chodesh, and that's what this means. Continue on in the Pnei Yeshua. Even so, they don't query this and ask some questions to ensure it really was the moon, because they're quite keen that that night should be Rosh Chodesh. And as in fact, continue, Kushahu me'atorech, Kain nire li. But anyway, then he brings the Rambam, which we don't need a different interpretation entirely. We'll leave that out. So what he's saying the following, given two interpretations, well, the second one is the one he prefers, which is this. If they want to make Sunday night, Monday, Rosh Chodesh, two witnesses come along and say, we saw a crescent moon. Now, if they query this a bit further, it may well turn out that, in fact, they didn't see the moon. But they are very interested in making that day Rosh Chodesh. So therefore, the Bezdin will turn a blind eye. And when these witnesses say, we think we saw the moon, they'll say, great, say no more. We're making the day Rosh Chodesh. They know it's possible. They know they want to make today Rosh Chodesh. And therefore, this is what it means. Ma'ayim, we warn them. And in other words, we're not particular about their testimony. Don't say too much, because we're very keen that today should be Rosh Chodesh. So in that way, we warn them off. We're not going to be medactic with their testimony. In any normal case, of course, they would. They need to get to the truth. Whether they really did see
them. We're
I'm sorry?
threatening them. I mean, it's to threaten them. We threaten them to keep quiet.
Yeah, although you want to look at, we're threatening them. You're quite right. We threaten them. Don't say too much, please. Keep your words to a minimum, because we're not going to examine you any further. The Lashon here, and as he said here, so we warn them, we threaten them. Don't say too much, because it might be a giveaway that you really didn't see the moon. So if two witnesses say they saw something in the sky looking like a thin crescent moon, that's going to be enough for these purposes. You see, what he's trying to answer is this problem. How can you warn witnesses to tell what we think is a lie? And the Pnei Yeshua clearly doesn't like that. And therefore, with his preferred pshat, he's saying, no, what it means is we're not medactic, we don't cross-examine them in the same way we would if this was, for example, imagine it was a case, I don't know, a murder case, for example. You'd have to be absolutely spot on. Where were you standing? Tell me exactly, what was it like, everything, to ensure they are telling the truth. In this instance, what we're saying is we wouldn't be doing that. So thank you very much, Peter, for that.
Can I ask, is the Pnei Yeshua giving two options? The one option is that we accept any old witness, even if we're doubtful, we keep quiet. But wasn't it first that he was saying that we go to experts who calculate, and they knew that it could be Rosh Chodesh? We're not asking them to say they saw anything.
Well, Peter, let's have that. Sorry, drive you mad, but just bring that return if we can. The return of the Pnei Yeshua.
Because I was wondering then, do these experts come forward and volunteer, or do we actually?
No. Let's have a look at that wording again. And the expert, the Dayanim themselves were experts in this.
Sure.
But it's true, they could ask others about it. I mean, they were experts. Royu lirois, but keeping to hoda mitzvah da. They said, "Shapi yocholim lasis came. The low havi devar sheker. Why? Dia havi kriya. Knowledge is like they actually saw it.
So is it saying that these Adim have the knowledge, and they're saying we are assuring you, Bestin, that by our calculations it could be today?
It looks like the way I'm reading this is the Besdin would actually get hold of two people and say, in our calculation today you could have seen the moon, and therefore you are able to say for this purpose you saw the moon. Because the Gemara does actually say v'yomru ro'inu. That's the problem. The Gemara does actually say v'yomru. It doesn't say, they don't say anything at all. But
in English, there's a saying, seeing is believing, and here we're saying believing is seeing. We know, right, we've seen that today is the day.
Yes.
Not with our eyes, but with our brain. We
yes, very good. Yes. We've seen and we understand. And they presumably would explain that to the witnesses. And this is the Besdin explaining it with our calculations. Yeah. And therefore you can say, we understand that today. So using this word to see, it doesn't mean actual vision. It means seeing with our brains, if you like, that today is Rosh Chodesh. Because you can't, you actually got those words in the Gemara. They can actually say we saw, but it's not a vision with the eyes. We saw and we understand. I mean, in English you say the same. I see what you're saying. You do say that in English, actually. Yeah. So it really means I understand. So those words mean I understand rather than actually see. Yeah, you're quite right. And the second pshat is rather different. Yes, where they actually did see it, but we don't quiz them too much. Yeah, thank you. I think that clarifies it. Yes, hello there.
May I ask a question?
You certainly can.
Do you actually need witnesses? I mean, did you actually need witnesses when you could actually calculate the new year by, say, a previous Chag?
You're quite right. You don't. The Torah says that when you see the new moon, because it says, you're pointing up and you're saying, this is the new moon. From there, they learned in the olden days that witnesses would come forward and say they saw the moon. Now, it's true. If witnesses, as Jonathan mentioned, of course, if witnesses don't come, that by default, it has to be a new moon anyway, because it's either going to be 29 or 30, and you can do the calculations. You know exactly, if you're good enough and you're, an expert in astronomy that these people were, they knew exactly where the moon would be visible. The mitzvah is, if you can, that people should see that new moon, come tell the Bezdin. In fact, the later Mishnahs would have the Bezdin sees the moon. Nobody else did, just the Dayanim. That's a separate piece. So the mitzvah is you should see the moon come. You say we saw the moon, and then they announce there's Rosh Chodesh. But you're quite right. If you don't, and certainly nowadays there's no visibility of the moon, we've got a calendar, you can make Rosh Chodesh without actually having seen the moon. But we prefer to do the job in those days, and that will return, to actually seeing the moon and then making the Rosh Chodesh. The question now is, and that's the Gemara's point, can you do that if you actually didn't see the moon? And according to certainly for these 2 months, and we explained how it works, either you see the two pshatim of the Pnei Yeshua, either it means Ro'ina, we understand today is the new moon. In fact, you didn't see the moon. And it's only therefore you can publicize then for everybody and say, yes, witnesses came. Today was Rosh Chodesh. But even without those witnesses, as we said, we can do that today without actually having witnesses and make the new moon. Is that right? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So you could, as we've said, here under these circumstances, make the Rosh Chodesh, even though you actually haven't seen the moon, or you haven't cross-examined them sufficiently, but that doesn't matter. Because as you quite rightly said, you can anyway make the Chodesh without actually seeing the moon. So therefore, they just go through the motions, as it were, just to make, it looks like we're going through that motion. We're very keen to make today Rosh Chodesh, so we will make out as if we had the witnesses, because we prefer to go along the lines of having witnesses. Yeah?
Thank you.
Says the Gemara, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines up, Robert Omar. Now, let's go back to this. We started today with the view of Rabbi Bar Shmuel that you're not allowed to, as we said, extend the month. Certainly can't make it shorter. That's the way we thought, and we gave an interpretation. Remember, there was the view of a Rabbi Bar Shmuel. We started that today, and the way we thought that read, Yochel Kashem Shema Abri Mes Hashana. Maybe you can lengthen the month and tell the witnesses not to give their testimony. And we thought Shatin Rabbi Bar Shmuel was, you can't do that, right? Until we interpreted it differently and we explained, no, what you can't do according to him is you can't get the Eidim to say they saw the moon. And we explained, except for those 2 months, we changed the wording of Rabbi Bar Shmuel to say that you can, if you need, extend the month, certainly. Yeah? But at face value, where we started today, we had a problem because it sounded like what he was saying is you're not allowed to. So in the interpretation until now, in the Gemara, we've changed the words. We've said it was a mistake the way we learnt the statement of Rabbi Bar Shmuel. He said, no, you really can, and that then it would tie into what we've said previously, that you can, under circumstances where you need the month to be longer, for example, do so. But that was not the simple wording of Rabbi Bar Shmuel as we started this evening. It sounded very much like he was saying, no, you can't. Says the Gemara, Rova Omar, have you got it? 5 lines up. Rova Omar, Hodatoni Rabba Bar Shmuel. We're not changing his words. We didn't misunderstand what he said. What he said at face value is exactly what he said, which was what? He said, you are not allowed to extend. The month has to be, the witness is seeing the month, but we'll see a totally different pshat here. There's no room to maneuver and change the months. Look at this. Acherim he. It's the view of Acherim. To Sanya, we've got a brisa. We'll be dealing more about this as we move on. Acherim Omrim. The view of Acherim, not me Acherim. Ein bein atzeres la atzeres. There is no difference between one Shavuos and another Shavuos, or bein Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Hashanah. Very easy to calculate when next Rosh Hashanah or next Shavuos will be. Ela Daled Yomim Bilvad. This view that we learned and started off this evening, don't change the words. You do not change the month. The months, in fact, are fixed. What does that mean? There's only 4 days between one Rosh Hashanah and the next. Why 4 days? Have a look at Rashi. 4 lines up in Rashi, that you cannot extend, and you cannot make the month shorter than it really is. What does that mean? It's the view of Acherim, one of the Tanoim. Da Omre, they said the following: La'olam kol hachadoshim echod mole ve'echod choser. It's going to be fixed. Maybe witnesses can still come along, but if they don't come along, it doesn't matter. It's a fixed ruling. What's the fixed ruling? It's always going to be a mole and a choser. What does mole choser mean? A 30 and then 29. And so it goes on indefinitely. Why, says Rashi? Keseder moiled halvona. Like the way the ordering of the, what's the mean, the moiled? The renewal of the months. Shemischadeshes la'olam. 3 lines up. It always renews itself. B'sof choftes yomim u'mechza. It's 29.5 days between one Rosh Chodesh and another Rosh Chodesh, right? Astronomically, it's 29.5 days, which means you're going to have a 29 and a 30. 29, 30. So 1 minute. If that's true, how many are there? This is interesting the way Rashi's doing a calculation. Imagine over a year. Says Rashi, well, in 2 months, that gives you Chamisha Batisha Nishnei Chadoshim. True? A 29 and a 30 is 59. Multiplied by 6 over a full year, and how many days have you got? 59 times 6?
364.
How much?
364.
Almost.
54.
Thank you. 354. Thank you, Malcolm. 354. And the easy way to do that is 60 times 6 and take off 6. 354, isn't it? 59 times 6 is 60 times 6, and that 1, 6, yeah? It's only 354. Now, what's special about 354? Look at the next Rashi. Abor Yomim. How many weeks is 354 days? Well, 350 will be 50 weeks, correct? Look at Rashi. Abor Yomim im nikpa achshov be'echad b'Shabbos. If, for example, Rosh Hashanah was on a Sunday, Yehele Shana Habor, the following year, it will be on a Thursday. Very simple. There are 354 days, 29, 30, 29, 30, a whole year's worth of those. 354. 350 is a complete number of 7s. Plus 4. So if it's on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it will next be on a Thursday. Shezer continues Rashi. Shezer cheshbon shneim osa chodesh. That is the calculation or the addition of 12 months. Echod mole, ve'echod chosa, oila, le. What does that stand for? Shin Nun Daled. It stands for Shin Nun Daled. 354. Sorry, quick joke there. There you go. Shin Nun Daled. It's not standing for anything. It's not Rosh Hashanah. Looks like it is. It's Oila 2, 354 days. V'hasholish me'os v'chamishim, 2 lines from the end of the Rashi. V'hasholish me'os v'chamishim, 350 kulom shuvuim. It means it's a complete number of weeks, although we call it Shavuos. It's a complete number of weeks. Nimso nitcha lahalon arbo'o yomim. It's therefore been pushed an extra 4 days. So there is a view, a Tana, who holds that it always moves 29:30, 29:30. All this rule that we learned before about trying to ensure that you don't have Yom Kippur on a Friday is out the window. And we're saying that's the same as the view we started off today. You are not allowed to interfere with that calculation. Witnesses can come, even if they don't come, it doesn't matter. It's going to be a 29:30, 29:30. What happens though if it's a leap year? Continues the Gemara. Vim hois, 3 lines up. Vim hoisa shana mu'u beres. If, however, it's going to be a leap year, what will be the difference between Rosh Hashanah one year and Rosh Hashanah the next year? It won't be 4 days, says the Gemara, it will be 5 days. Why 5 days? Look at Rashi, please. Last line. Why? Because the extra month that we will add, you're going to be adding, according to this view, there will be an extra month, which will be another 29 days. 29, 1. So you've got another 4 weeks plus a day. It will then push. It's going to push out. You with me? So there are 5 days between, according to Acherin, this view. Not saying we paskin like this, but according to this view, there is no room to maneuver. There's always 4 days, a normal year, 5 days in a leap year between one Rosh Hashanah or one Shavuos and the next Shavuos. And that was the view that we saw when we started tonight, when we said that you're not allowed to interfere with that calculation. You with me?
Norman, can I just ask? I mean, this is all only according to the lunar, isn't it? I mean, because if there's an extra 2 weeks, we're going assuming there's 50 weeks in the year.
That's right, absolutely. The 50 weeks of the year, unless you get a leap year, and then you have 54 weeks.
Aren't there 50? Sorry.
No, they're 52 weeks in the solar year.
normally 52. Yeah, so
that's right. So after every couple of years, you'll need that extra month to bring it back in line, sync. Yeah.
Yeah, but so it's not. So it's more than 4.
No. 29 and 30. If you go 29 and 30, it's meant to be 29 and a half.
Yeah, if you assume it's a 50-week year.
Yeah, no, you assume a 29 and a half day month.
Yeah.
So 12, 29 and a half.
Yeah.
12 times 29 and a half gives you the 354.
Yeah.
354 is 50 weeks and 4 days, which means there's always 4 days between one year and the next. Until, you're quite right, you'll have to bring it in line. We want to have the solar and the lunar calendar in line, consistent, in sync. So what you'll have to do, you'll have to have another month. And the month you add is a 29-day month. And that 29-day month gives you an extra day, 4 weeks plus a day, and therefore it will be 5 days. There's a slight problem there. Malcolm's got a question. Yes.
Also, Sammy's got one. I had two actually. One was just the grammatical thing. I mean, about the Shavuim and the Shavuot.
Yeah,
Can you-
yeah,
can
yeah.
you
You're
say something
quite
about that? No, can you? I mean, can you?
You're
explain?
right.
What-
Strictly speaking, with Shavuos, but people use more of an act than people just use a Shavuim, meaning weeks. Yeah,
Was it in order to avoid the confusion, possibly, of saying?
could be. You're quite
Oh, I
right.
see.
Shavuos, otherwise might be oats. But
Oh,
strictly speaking,
okay,
of course it is Shavuos. Yes.
But so
But
the question I had about the 4 days.
before
hold on.
Before you get any further, what is the difference between weeks and oaths in Hebrew? If it's spelt with no vowels, they're both the same. One's shavuos and one's shavuos. Shavuos means weeks. Shavuos means oaths. So if you're doing a Sfiras Ha'omer, make sure you say the word correctly. Shavuos, weeks. It's not 4 oaths in a day. Yeah. Sorry, I stopped you. Keep going. Yes, Malcolm.
About the you can't have Rosh Hashanah on certain days. We had that a few weeks ago.
Hold on. The view we've got today disagrees with what we've learned earlier. There's a machlokas tanoim between whether you've got the capability, and that we've seen 2 views today, whether you've got the capability to push off the witnesses to ensure, as you quite rightly said, we don't want to have Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur falling on certain days. You can do that. The view we're seeing now, this acherim, this other view of in the Tanoim is no, you can't do that. It's fixed. The calendar is fixed. It's very good, very easy. There's a 4-day between one year and the next, 5 between one if it's a leap year. Simple as that. So what we've seen before is one view. There are 2 views. We paskin that you can ensure, and that's of course why our calendar actually does not have Yom Kippur ever falling on a Friday or a Sunday. We don't paskin like this view. But there's another question we can ask here. I think you said Sammy had a question.
I just want to see the maximum number of 30 days period.
Yes.
Will be 6 according
Yes.
to the calculation.
Yes.
Where we've just learned that there can be a maximum of 8. So how can there be a maximum of 8?
Where did you see that? That's
so that in one of the commentaries.
Oh, very good. You're quite right. That maximum of 8 goes with the first view.
Oh.
The first view that gives you that flexibility. Which means it's not fixed 29, 30, 29, 30. It very much was down to when the Eidim came. So if the Eidim always came late, for some reason, it was cloudy every night, every month, then you may find that you've got quite a run of 30 days. So then the Bezdin would ensure, we need to bring that back in line. But that's the first view. The first view gives you flexibility. So much flexibility, we've even seen this view, the flexibility will allow you to make Rosh Chodesh when you didn't even see the moon and pretend, inverted commas, that you saw the moon. That's the earlier view. This view of Acherim would not get involved in those 8 months. It can't happen because it's always a straight 30-29, 30-29. Can't happen. That's the view of Acherim. We don't paskin like that, but that's the view of Acherim. But there's only one extra problem with that, and that's Tosfos raises, and we'll finish with this problem. Have a look at the last Tosfos, quite concise here, but have a look at the Tosfos. Now, but Erechin Parech, the Gemara in Erechin asks, Ika Yoma, there's a word missing here. Yoma Deshor, around the side, I've got an additional word in the Tosfos. Yoma Deshoi, Yoma Detlosin Shinin. There's an extra day because of hours, and an extra day because of what he says 30. We'll see about this, what this means in a minute. Mishum de Kong Shona, every year, Odethes Arboa Yomim, it's true. The difference between one year and the next We said going 29 and a half, 30, 29 and a half, 30 is 4 days. But there's something extra. What do I mean by extra? Those people who've got a Gemara, those people who haven't, I'll read it out to you. The Gemara in Daf Chof Hey Amud Aleph. This is where Mervin comes in with his Osa Yerech Lamadim. I expect Mervin to say a number. Osa Yerech Lamadim? No? Okay. Well, the Gemara there tells you, Omalehem Rabban Gamliel. I'll just read the words, about 2/3 down the page. Chof Hey Amud Aleph, if you've got the Gemara. Beginning line is a Bikshu. Omalehem Rabban Gamliel. Kach Mukublani mi beis Abba Abba. This I've got a tradition going back to my Zayden and going back earlier than that. The Ein Chidusha Shalom. This is, I think, one of the most powerful sentences in this Gemara. The tradition that passes down that the difference between 1 month and the next month, it's not just 29 and a half. It's 29.
754 is also your Echlemodim, as you just said.
Yeah.
754.
No. How's the calculations going? Also, we had to take the calculator, please. Also, your Echlemodim. This Gemara here will tell you it's 29 and a half and 793 chalokim.
All right, it was only 40 out.
No, not bad. A couple of chalokim between friends. What does it mean, 793 chalokim? A chelik is 3.3 seconds. There are 1,080 chalokim in an hour. And there are 793. The Gemara is saying that the time it takes for the moon to circle is 29 and a half days plus 793 chalokim. Yeah? A chelik is 3.3 seconds. That's what they used in those days.
Yeah.
And what is amazing, and when we get there, hopefully we're looking more into that, is how precise that calculation is. It's spot on to, I can't tell you how many decimal places. So much so when many years ago, people may remember people getting to the moon and they lasered back. They wanted to calculate the exact calculation of the moon going around the earth. And it was spot on. It's just amazing that this number is so accurate. And of course, the only way you can do it is really going between the eclipses of the sun, and there's so few of those. I mean, how do you work out how long, if you haven't got the tools going back a couple of thousand years, how do you work out how long it takes for the moon to go around the sun? You can think about it yourselves, gentlemen. Anyway, the Gemara here tells you there's a tradition that it takes 29 and a half and 793 halakim. Now, our calculation of those 4 days ignored the 793. Now, if you like our homework, if you multiply up those 793, if you multiply that by 12, yeah, nice calculation for you, Peter, when you're going to do. Your 793 halakim, 1,080 make an hour, right? So you've got 793 per month. So in a year, when you multiply up 793 times 12,
9516.
no, 793 times 12, how much is that? I haven't got my calculator.
9516. 9,000.
Oh, sorry.
500.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't misheard you. Sorry, repeat that.
9516. 9,516.
Can you keep that in the calculator?
Yeah.
How much is 8 hours? 8 times 1,080. How much is that? That's 8 hours.
That is 8,640.
And the difference between the two?
876.
Thank you. Stop there. Go back to Tosfos, please. Says Tosfos, we have ignored the 793 halakim. Says Rashi, the kol Tosfos I'm doing now, the kol shona every year odefes abo yomim. Yes, there's 4-day difference, but there's also an extra shmona shois, 8 hours, and 876 halakim. Thank you, Peter. So how can you tell me there's always 4-day gap between 1 year and the next? Those 8 hours, what are they going to add up to? Says Rashi, "Va'osen chalokim mistafin leyoim sholim." Now, the 8 hours in 3 years, you've got an extra day. 8 3s 24. Thank you. What about those extra 876? If you multiply 800, now this is a good one for you, Peter. 876 times 30, that means 30 years. And what have you got now?
26,280.
Can you put that in the memory and tell me what 24 hours is? So 24 times 1,080, how much is that?
25,920.
So, and the difference between those two numbers is a mere 300 or something.
360.
Thank you. Which means in 30 years, all those 876 halakim are adding a whole day. In 3 years, those 8 hours are adding a further day. So how can you tell me there's always 4 days between 1 year and the next? You're going to have to add every 3 years an extra day, and every 30 years you're going to have to add another extra day. You with me? Good question. I'm surprised nobody asked that. Says Tosfos, what Acherim meant here, yes, in the normal run of things, from year to year, there will be just an extra 4 days, 5 days if it's a leap year. It's true, and we're not discussing the extra part of that fraction, the remainder in the old days. We're not talking about that remainder, because that remainder will also add up to a day in 3 years and a day in 30 years. Our Gemara is just sticking to the normal years, and from 1 year to the next, there will normally just be 4 days. But the bottom line is this, we'll stop here. What we've seen in this Gemara is that according to Acherim, and according to, in fact, the view we saw before, Rabbi Bar Shmuel, you are not allowed to interfere with that calculation. Yes, you do want Adam to come along and say they saw the moon, but if they don't, it doesn't matter, because you're going to have to stick to this calculation. And the calculation is, we know 29.5 plus a little bit more, and therefore we know it's going to go from 4 days. And as you say, Malcolm, this is different to the view we've seen until now, which is there was a flexibility with the Beis Din to actually make the Rosh Chodesh and extend the month if they wanted to for other reasons. Says Acherim, no, you can't. And that is the view that we started off with today. So we've seen now 2 views, whether or not you have that capability of extending the month. And the rest of this we will have to leave for next week. Sorry, Peter, I gave you that extra attachment, but at least you have the attachment for next week, all being well. So we will just have to finish off that line at the bottom before, all being well, moving on to the next Amud. So with that, gentlemen, I wish you well. We've got Michael with us.